Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 125 of the CUInsight Experience. This episode is brought to you by our friends at CUIS, the leading talent development solutions provider to the credit union industry. CUIS is happy to announce the return of its popular online certification programs from Cornell University. You can get access to Ivy League education, executive education, without ever leaving your office. Learn more about it at CUIS.org/Cornell. My name is Randy Smith. I'm one of the co-founders of CUInsight.com, and I'm lucky enough to have conversations with the amazing people who make credit unions great, and I bring them all to you. I get to pick their brains and see if we can't find a few nuggets that we can all learn from. My guest on today's show is Jill Mahany. Jill is the president and CEO of Santa Ana Federal Credit Union. This was my first time meeting Jill. We were at the REACH conference. She was introduced to me by the previous guest on our show, John Hernandez. And after a short conversation, I asked if she'd like to be on the podcast. She said yes. We recorded the next day. It was amazing. We talked about her credit union and how much they have benefited from collaboration with other CUs, both large and small in the area. We also talked about the challenges that small credit unions face, and Jill had some amazing ideas on how to not only keep credit unions relevant, but successful for many, many years to come. Jill had just a ton of awesome, what I think, leadership tips, is the way I would put it, that she's picked up over her career. And of course, we wrapped it all up with the rapid fire questions. I really enjoyed meeting and getting to know Jill. I'm so glad that our paths crossed while we were at REACH in Palm Desert, California. So without further ado, I give you my conversation with Jill Mahany. Enjoy. Jill, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this on many levels because we're actually doing this at the REACH conference, which is my first time doing a podcast now with another human that I can actually see. And I think over 20 months. I think it was like CUIS Symposium a couple of years ago since I've been able to do this.
It's amazing.
It feels good. We were just talking about before we got going that we're both kind of tired, probably because we weren't used to seeing people, but but it is good to see people in person. Doing a little homework for this conversation, a little research, I was looking at the history of your credit union, and I thought it was so interesting because yours, like so many others, you started with a SEG, so it's Santa Ana Employees, I believe, was the original, or
Santa Ana City Employees.
The City Employees, okay. And but now, you've obviously over the years you've become a community credit union, and you serve a wider range of folks, let's just say. But how have you been able to keep staying connected to the community where you're based?
I've been thinking about that question a lot, and I would have to be honest and say we're not really good at that.
Okay.
Because we're small. Yeah. And being small limits what we can and cannot do. Now, we're very fortunate that the Santa Ana City, we're Santa Ana Federal Credit Union now, that we originated with the city of Santa Ana employees. So we're still really connected with the city.
Yep.
And they think of us on many occasions and include us in many events that they do. With that being said, we expanded our charter in 2003 to serve the underserved.
Oh, okay.
So the entire city of Santa Ana is who could be potential members and are our members.
Yeah.
So I feel because I feel like I'm in the weeds so much as a small credit union CEO. And that takes me away from being the strategic person that I should be, along with my COO, who's also in the weeds. And it just seems like we're always having to cover or do something. So with the question is, how do we stay connected? We feel very fortunate that we work with the city. The police department is very close to us. They include us in a lot of their events.
Okay.
But I think the hardest part is really getting deeper into the community is where we'd like to go. And I would say 80% of my staff are all Hispanic, all bilingual.
Yeah.
And we have all the tools and everything that we need. We just need to be able to get the people to come through the door. The Hispanic culture is very hard to get them to trust. And once you do, they're yours forever.
There's loyalty after, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so we've really been trying to find the silver bullet for us to go out and really get more involved. And I think trying to find the perfect business developer, and again, size do we have the budget for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're trying to get our staff more involved in being in the community. But again, especially through COVID, we couldn't do much.
It makes it difficult. Let me ask you, the idea that like your staff is bilingual, I mean, is that something that you've had to work on over the years, or has that always been the case?
Well, I started there so early. So I started at the credit union in 1986.
Amazing.
And we had one bilingual speaker.
Okay.
It was just, that's all we had. We really didn't need it. But as Santa Ana has changed and as our credit union has changed, we have a large Hispanic membership.
Yep.
So now when I hire anybody in the front office or anybody that's member facing or speaks to them in any way, shape, or form has to be bilingual in Spanish. So it's just a hiring requirement that we have. And it does limit us on occasion when we do. But when they come on, they're so happy because they feel like they're helping their community.
Absolutely. Yeah. So something else I noticed, kind of doing the homework, because it sounds like you've also been involved with the league over the years too. And I'm a big fan of the league system. But the question I like to ask is like, how have you found that collaboration with whether it's the partners or other credit unions to be important? You mentioned the smaller credit unions, and the small credit union CEOs that I've always talked to, I'm always blown away with how many hats you all have to wear, right?
Yes.
And what it may be. I remember talking to Joanne Todd in Connecticut, and she was talking about shoveling snow, right? So
cleaning the bathrooms, the overflow,
exactly.
all that stuff.
Also a plumber, and so. But how has that? I guess the collaboration with other partners and folks around, has that helped?
Oh my gosh, that is such a great question, and I don't know. If John Hernandez, if you ever spoke to him, but John Hernandez is a visionary, and I so wish I just had a little bit of his brain, because I was a new CEO in 2006.
Okay.
Then along came the big recession.
Yeah.
And I knew of the league, but I really wasn't involved as much as I could have been or even knew I could.
Okay.
And so anyway, John came up with this idea to bring CEOs together, small CEOs. And I had met John at Q School. That's a whole nother story.
Absolutely.
And became friends. And so Linda White, who's a CEO up north, had a group similar to what John was thought he might create in Southern California.
Yeah.
So in 2008, we met in a small Mattel credit union meeting room. And we are here today. And we have been so successful. They have saved my life over the course of going through the big recession, through the pandemic. It's just so nice to be, the idea is that we collaborated on core system.
Yep.
There were like 20 of us that went into the whole deal, and like 5 went one way and 10 went another way.
Okay.
And I happened to go the way with John. So we're on the same core system with the idea that we thought we could collaborate.
Yeah.
So I do my disaster recovery at John's credit union because he's in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And so we do that. And so many ideas that have brought, one idea I went and learned from a CEO. They did at the time that charge your members for identity theft. Well, I did that, and we created a checking program, and it brought in $15,000 a month.
Wow. Yeah.
Something crazy like that. That was so important at that time.
Yeah.
And so the collaboration, and the other part of collaboration, just being in the credit union industry, I'm surrounded by billion-dollar credit unions. And in so many cases, smaller CEOs of smaller credit unions are afraid of that.
Yeah.
I always tell them, embrace it. I have worked closely with 2 CEOs, billion-dollar credit union CEOs that have done nothing but help me. Anything I need, they're there. Don't recreate the wheel, Jill. Here's a policy. This is what we're doing during COVID. Here's the signs. Here, I'll have HR. This is what we're doing. One of the other CEOs put together a CEO roundtable for just 5 local credit unions, smaller credit unions.
Okay.
And we just talk it out. We just vent. I call it a therapy session.
A therapy session. I love that.
But it is so helpful when it is lonely at the top.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're trying to keep your head up and be positive for your staff, they have no idea what's going on between my ears and how I need to just take a breath and say, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this? And just to have those ears and those people say it's going to be okay.
And that understand the position too, because that's the idea of it being lonely at the top is something that I've talked to people about before, because you have your team, but you're still the CEO, and you have your board.
Yes.
But you're still the CEO.
Yes.
And so it's, it can be. So that's amazing. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned like not being afraid of the $1 billion credit union or the big credit union that's in your neighborhood. Is most of the fear, I assume, from others is coming because they're afraid they're just going to merge.
Right? The M word.
Yeah, the M word. So is that just something you're not worried about, or is it something that you're just like, listen, we're not a merger partner, I'm asking you for help?
It's interesting because I've been come at it from different areas. Like when I first came on as the CEO or was being considered because they knew the previous CEO had left.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we'd love to partner with you.
Okay.
And I said, oh, because I'm going to be the surviving credit union. Yeah. And that kind of ended that conversation. And so, but the other ones, no. Most of the time they tell me, no, Jill, we need the small credit unions. We'll do everything we can to keep you here. There was only one time that I had to ask just because we were having some issues with going on. And my board says, you need to create a list.
Okay.
You have to create a list. We're not saying that we're going to merge, but we have to have a plan in place if it came to that.
Yeah.
And so I went to one of the CEOs and she says, absolutely not. I go, but I need absolutely not. I will help you. I said, please let me just put your name on the list.
Just have your name.
Yeah. So,
we don't want to do this.
But other than that, they have been nothing but helpful for me. And I was on a CEO roundtable with them. And I said that again. I am so appreciative of everything that they have done for me in my career. And I wouldn't be here today without so many of them. So
let me ask you that. You've mentioned the roundtables. I'm kind of a fan of the idea that we kind of are the people we surround ourselves with. How have they helped? Like you've mentioned, given some examples of the credit union, but in your own career path as well. How have the people that you've chose to surround yourself with helped?
The people that I surround myself with?
Yeah.
My gosh, I surround myself with people that are smarter than me. I do that with my staffing. I really do. I'm a big believer in that. Yeah. But for those, when I came on as a CEO, I was nervous. I had really done all the accounting work, and that's all that I really did. And did operations, and the opportunity came up and the board says, why don't you try it? And it's like, cause really I had no idea. And I was one of the questions that you asked is like, how did you think of that? And I really didn't. I was really completely happy being a number two.
Okay.
But I am competitive in nature. So I just had, the ability to reach out to John Hernandez was a huge help.
Yeah.
Shruti Miyashiro, huge help. Just being able to ask them questions. And we went through really some rough times with NCUA and different things. And the fact that I could reach out to them and just get advice on how to move or what I should do was so helpful getting me to where I am today. But the mentors and the people I surround myself with that are people that can help me. And I have 60 great friends out of all my CEOs in the Southern California area. And even in the Northern California, I could pick up the phone and call them, what can I do?
Yeah.
What can you help me? I mean, I'm having an issue internally with personnel leaving. And I had another large CEO said, Jill, I can send you to a person that could work 2 days a week if you need me. Just call me.
That's fantastic. I love hearing that. So let me go there. It is a tough talent market right now. I mean, it's horribly tough. Is there any tips for, like you said, or anything that you're finding that's working to not only, I guess, retain staff, but also if you have to bring in new people?
Yeah, it's extremely tough. And especially since COVID.
Yeah.
And even before that, so I find over the years that because, again, we're a small credit union, a lot of times when we do find good talent, we find them and then they leave us as soon as they get their 2 years or 3 years of experience, and they're usually in key positions.
Yeah.
So I have always tried to stay very, very competitive in our salary.
Okay.
I can't do a lot of some of the extra benefits that they do. We pay 100% of our medical, which is good. I mean, I was surprised that some do not.
Right.
They pay a percentage of that. So, and I also I always tell them, well, the perk is we don't have weekends hours.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a perk. And I guess maybe to others, maybe not. But I do feel very fortunate that My COO has been with the credit union 22 years. I hired her.
Wow.
Started as a teller.
Yeah.
My back office manager has been there for 9. And my accounting manager has been there for almost 9. And then my assistant, she does everything. She just like the office manager and she does payroll. She's been there 7 years.
Oh, wow. See, that's some
it's more in the
right?
entry level and sometimes in the upper management too. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
And it really is difficult because I worry. I know the importance of those positions and I can't do it all.
That's my next question for you. It's this idea, and I was excited to ask you this because I know from the people I've talked to in the past about running the smaller credit unions, and you mentioned it earlier, right? Like the making the time to still think strategically. We only have so much bandwidth. And if we're constantly putting out fires, is there anything that you do or any like tips that either you give maybe a new CEO of a credit union, been doing this now for a while, or that a tip that somebody gave you on to be able to make that time and space to still think strategically for the credit union?
It's been really hard to concentrate strategically.
Absolutely.
And I think I mentioned that. So I just had a conversation with another CEO recently. It's like, I had to take over the real estate when my VP of finance left because he kind of did that. So I do that every day. I mean, I take care. I do all the underwriting. I do all the review. I approve. I get it, make sure it goes together. So what am I going to strategically think? I mean, strategically think, do I need to bring somebody on board to do this? But even my COO, that's a big dilemma, is to strategically think. She's out covering for the MSR. She's out tellering. So we don't do the strategic thinking we do as our planning session annually. Yeah. My idea right now is I'm trying to reorganize that so that my COO and myself can be more strategic. And maybe we need to hire a higher level, one more manager, so that they can do and get into the weeds. And I need to get out of the weeds. And I would say that that's hard in a small credit union because you do wear so many hats and it's ultimately your responsibility that the credit union runs. And so if nobody else is taking accountability, which is one of our core values, is to be accountable, somebody's got to do that. And it seems to be me. On the upper level is to figure it out. So, I wish I had the silver bullet to that for smaller credit unions.
I think I've always had this fondness for the smaller credit unions because as a CUInsight's a small company. So as a small business owner, I'm kind of like, I understand having to wear the hats. And in the end, it's your responsibility. Let me ask you this. How do you, it's not tough in credit unions to find purpose. You mentioned being a community development credit union. How do you make sure that you are staying purpose-driven and, the credit union is as well?
Well, I have a perfect thing for that. And I want to make sure that I say it correctly, is that my belief is that on the whole person approach of developing a purpose-driven culture, you provide fulfillment to your staff, who in turn brings more positive energy, and it benefits everybody involved. So I really try to do that, is to really bring purpose and engage my staff so that they want to come to work every day. And we really do try to live our mission, our vision, and our core values on a daily basis. Do we get that message out enough? I would say not enough. Always on orientation, always at staff meetings when we can find time to have the staff meeting so everybody can be there. But, everybody knows it's member service. And you hear more and more, well, with the new generation, that's nice. They love their credit union, but they want convenience. Yeah. They want it tomorrow. Yeah. And so we're trying to stay relevant in so many ways and still keep the family feel. And that's what we're all about.
Let me ask you this. Is there something you think, and maybe it can be credit unions in general or small credit unions, need to do maybe better, if that's the word I'd use, to stay relevant in the future? Well, there's a lot of crazy competition out there, right?
Absolutely. And I think that we need to find a way to collaborate back office. I really do. Call centers, back office, accounting, that would take so much off of our plates that then we could be more strategic thinking on the upper levels.
Right. Yeah.
And we know that we could have a manager watch the branch. We're only a one branch credit union. So right now we'd like to expand if we can expand our charter a little bit. But right now it's either Marissa or myself that are trying to do the covering. And we have solid people, but it happens.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That's kind of what we're thinking.
That collaboration.
The collaboration would be, and John Hernandez, we've been talking about this for many years, and we collaborate on different things. Like I do my disaster recovery there.
Right. Yeah.
So I know if if our building collapsed tomorrow, I could actually go to his credit union and work the daily stuff. I mean, we could do all the back office stuff.
And you're on the same core you mentioned too. And
right. Same core. And then we just have to figure out a great communication system to be able to let our members know their money's still, many believe it's still in the safe.
Right. Yeah.
That you...
Right. Bring it all back. How fun for me. Yeah.
You have it there, right? And so anyway, to get the word out that there's ATMs, there's other channels. It doesn't go away because the building's not there.
Absolutely.
And I think that's critical. And that's where disaster recovery and all that concentration, from my perspective, that's one of a million things that I'm trying to do. And it should be at the very top of my list because I wouldn't hate to wake up in the morning and say, your building is no longer there.
Right.
And then what do I do?
Yeah.
So this year, that's one of our big goals with the board, and that we're going to get that in order.
That's fantastic. I'd like to move on a little bit to your career journey. Do you remember that moment where you were like, hey, this credit unions thing, this seems like a nice, I could do this for a living?
It's a very funny story, actually. So I went to college and got my degree in business with an accounting concentration.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was a member at Santa Ana Federal Credit Union.
Okay.
And I came into the credit union, tank top, shorts, just to do a transaction. And my father-in-law was a board member at the time. So they knew who I was. Yeah. And the CEO comes over to me and he says, why don't you come in my office? And I was like, okay, kind of an intimidating guy. Yeah. And anyway, he goes, why don't you come to work for me for 6 months and I'll teach you everything you need to know about a credit union. And then you can go do whatever you want. I was like, okay. And I had already thought I was going to go into civil service work. I was going to work for the state or the county. And I was on a list to work for the Defense Contract Auditing Agency. And I could make this $2,000 a month. I was so excited. Yeah. He offers me $1,000.
Oh, all right.
And it's like, okay. And I was so afraid of him. I said, yes.
Okay.
I go home. I tell my husband, I can't do that. And so I call him back. I said, I'm sorry. I can't do it. I've got to make more money. He's okay, $1,500. I said, okay.
He watched it.
So anyway, I did my 6 months and I'm been there ever since.
It's still in the same credit union.
The same credit union.
That's amazing. I love stories. I think it feels like only.
And I tellered. I did it all. I mean, I started. He had me teller. Yeah. I went to new accounts. Yeah. I went to loans. I learned the CDs. I did all of that in 3 months. Okay. And then after 3 months, he threw me into accounting, and that's really I spent the majority of my career was doing the accounting for the credit union.
And then you, the next CEO after him, who hired you?
No. Okay. So we had a lot of trauma down the road and throughout. Okay. And
so you've seen it all.
I actually left for a little bit just for philosophical reasons. Yeah. And then the chairman, who's still the chairman now, I think he was the chairman then, he asked me to come back on the supervisory committee. Okay. And I was like, oh, okay, that'll be interesting. But I knew, I knew everything that I should know to ask for, probably more than they wanted me to know. Yeah. Right. So I was the supervisory committee chairman, and then there was more turmoil, and one thing led to another. So they brought in an interim CEO, and he was great. Schools First was amazing. They're our big neighbor down the street. Right. And Rudy Hanley sent everybody over to help free of charge, working day and night, and sent over one of his senior vice presidents. And he's one of my mentors that I wish I would have had some more time, Gordon Howe. Okay. And he's the CEO at Unify, which they rebranded. Anyway, he worked for about 1.5 years and told me he only wanted me part-time because he wasn't big on hiring back. And I get it. I said, okay, well, I'm going to go back and work for the CPA. Midway through, he says, I really think you should stay. Okay. Because I was literally the only one that had history in the credit union. Yeah. Me and the auditors. Yeah. So anyway, I came back. I said, my son's graduating from college. I'm going to have to take off and go see him perform, do his thing. No problem. Well, I was working back full time by January of 2005.
Okay.
And I think it was November of 2005. Gordon took the job at Unify.
Okay.
And so the board puts me into the interim position, which I was fine. I said, you guys take your time. Let's get someone good in here that's going to last. And, the credit union will run fine. I can run the credit union. But so we interviewed and I was in the interviews.
Okay.
And finally I was just going to a branch with my board member, my chair. And he says, why don't you just try it? And I said, well, okay, but I want unanimous from the board.
Yeah.
I want everybody to believe. They all knew me for so long on both sides of the table.
Absolutely.
But I told them, I said, I want everybody to want me in there. And if they don't, I totally understand.
Yeah.
And I was good. So
So
I've been
amazing.
the CEO since 2006. Yeah, it's a journey. I could actually write a book.
I think you should. There's so many. I think there'd be so many amazing books in credit union land. I love people's stories. Is there something that your team has heard you say so many times they can finish your sentence?
I was thinking long and hard on that, and I came up with, what did I write? I first was going to say member service, but it was more along the lines that same thing. I would say, remember, we have our paychecks because we serve our members.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And
right?
and I was like, always remember that when they're walking through the door, we work for them.
Yep, they pay us. So
and without them, we wouldn't have a job. And so, do I walk daily through that? No, but we do say that, and that's kind of our mantra: is that you got to remember the members are first.
Yep.
My team is first.
Yeah,
I put them on the same level as my team and my members, but we always do try to keep our members happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a myth about being a great leader that you're like, that's just not true? It's dead wrong, that you wish you never heard again?
That's a hard one. Because I would say if somebody believed in leaders that you should not be in tune with your staff, like sometimes they're just all about themselves at the top. And then, maybe the next person down shuffles it away. I'm a huge believer that, and maybe it's because I am a small credit union, is I'm totally involved in everybody's to some extent.
Right.
And I don't micromanage. I'm not like that, but I always go out and make sure that I make a difference and I know something each and individual about everybody so that they're not nervous.
Yeah.
When I come up to do a withdrawal and they forget how to even key in an account number. But I always talk about something personal that I've learned from listening to them. And so they just relax and everybody feels like they have a good connection and they're not afraid to come talk to me. But I do not believe in burying myself in the back corner.
Yep. I think it's great advice, actually. So, outside of credit unions, what does Jill do to recharge? What does that work-life integration look like to you?
So I really do like to golf. I just don't get out near as much as I can, but I do golf. And I enjoy the way I balance my life and integrate work is, of course, I have to work at home on occasion, but my goal, and it has been a long time, so that I will be energetic and ready to, who knows what I will be facing, is to make my weekends my weekends. Okay. So rarely do I bring my computer home. Yeah. Unless I know that I have something that I have to do. But I honestly and really, I'm trying to be true to myself, because I'm so much more refreshed. I'm so in tune to what's going on at home, sharing time with my husband or my new grandson or my kids when they're around. But just the fact that I'm not thinking about it. That's and I do read, I do read.
What are you reading?
Well, right now I'm reading State of Terror. Okay. And I love all of the David Baldacci books, the Nelson DeMille. And I've read 7 books since the end of the year. And I really kind of go into the top 10 in the newspaper when I read it to see, what's on there, what's been on there forever. So I'll try to read those too.
The top ones.
It makes me think not about work. Yeah.
That's, I understand that completely.
So if I sit on the couch and just try to not think about things, still go in my head. But if I'm reading a book, I'm into the book. Yeah. So I find that being relaxing for me and gives me time to just my head hits the pillow and I think about work. I get up in the morning, I'm thinking about work.
Is there a book that you've either gifted other people or you just think everybody should read?
I have not. I'm not a big reader of like all the.
You're reading to get away from work, not. Absolutely.
I know.
I get it.
I have read some, but I have not gifted anybody.
Was there is there something that you said no to that you're glad you did?
I had to really think about this because I'm not a big no person, but I kept thinking, okay, well, this could be personal.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be professional. No. So I came up with this one because it's a big one when I thought about it. So when the doctors told us, no, we can't have children.
Okay.
My plans was I'm going to have 3 children by the time I'm 27.
Oh,
that was my goal. And as it turned out, they said, nope, chances are getting pregnant, not going to happen. I was like, I don't believe that. Yeah. So we started adoption, got promised a baby. I found out I was pregnant the next day.
Did you really?
And then 7 years later, I had my daughter. I'm so glad I did not. I said, no, I don't believe you. Yeah. And yes, I am going to have kids.
Yeah, you did. Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't give up on that.
This might be my favorite answer to this that question. Yeah, so that's fantastic. I love it. Has there been a recent purchase you made? Kind of, one of those COVID purchases, Pelotons, puppies, people.
So I found this funny. Me personally, no.
Okay.
But my husband, he's been retired. He retired just before COVID.
Okay.
And for years, he's been wanting an old car. And I've been the old ball and chain saying, oh, why do you need an old car? And anyway, he found a 1956 Chevy Bel Air.
Okay.
And from a former firefighter who lived up in Washington that lost his wife. And he really wanted this car to go to someone that would keep the legacy going in a car. Anyway, so we just bought the 1956 Chevy Bel Air, and it's like cherry condition.
Are you enjoying it too now?
I enjoy, and it makes him so happy, and so it makes me happy. He goes to the car shows, and he does all that stuff. So that was our COVID purchase.
That was the COVID purchase. That was his retirement purchase. Yeah. So, what was Jill like in high school? Did you get any memorable trouble?
It's funny. I laugh because now Facebook, more people know about each other than they did.
Yeah.
But if you walked up to someone that hadn't seen me since graduation, and you said, "Oh, Jill's the CEO, or Jill's accounting, or Jill's in an office." Oh no, not Jill.
No, really.
She was the most athletic person that was in the school.
Yeah.
And so I was very well known for athletics. I was in...
What were your sports?
Softball, mostly softball. Back in the day, I was pre-CIF for girls.
Okay.
It was right after I graduated. So I played field hockey, I played volleyball, I played basketball, and I played softball. But I grew up playing softball.
Okay.
And so I played softball since I was 8, all through high school.
Yeah.
So I was never in any trouble. I was a rule follower. Yeah. So I was ASB, school government, honors, and I started dating my husband when I was a junior.
Did you? Okay. That's amazing. My sister and brother-in-law started dating in high school and they're still together.
We actually have known each other since we were in junior high.
Okay. That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That is rare, I would just say.
So no trouble to report.
Yeah. You're too busy playing sports. Sounds like a bunch of them. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I already asked you what you were reading. That was my next question. So the random question, what's the greatest album of all time?
I thought about it a lot, and I'm not a big music person. Now, my husband's an amazing, he should have been born in 1940 because he just knows every song. But I was always been a Beatle fan.
Okay. Yeah.
So my favorite album was the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. Mostly because of the songs on it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a turning point that kind of changed things over about that album. They just changed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was my favorite.
That's a good one. I think my guess is that's been mentioned before on the show too.
Yeah, so. It's been, that's a big one. The Abbey Road was another.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. When you hear the word success, I did not send you this question.
Oh no.
Who is the first person that comes to mind and why?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's my favorite question.
That is tough. There's a lot of successful people in my life, but I would have to say that my mom.
Okay.
My mom and dad divorced when I was very young, and my mom could see writing on the wall, so she went back to work.
Okay.
Started out as a clerk typist and went up through the Department of Education, and she had the highest paid job for a non or classified or whatever it is that it was. And she always told me that you need to go to school so you can always take care of yourself, and that you never know what's going to happen. And even though your husband is amazing, you just don't know catastrophically, divorce, whatever. But I always looked at my mom. She was such a success as not only professionally, but to have to take care of 2 kids.
Yep.
My brother and I, and my sister was much older, but she did an amazing job. And I think that's such a great success. Now that I'm a parent, I didn't tell my mom how much I appreciated her until I was a parent. And I think being a successful parent, and I hope someday that my kids would think that I was a successful parent.
They answer the same way.
Yeah. I don't know. But a lot of my, I have so many friends that are so successful, but I always thought that my mom was probably a very successful.
I love that answer. And this may or may not surprise you, but over the 3 years of the podcast, mom is the most popular answer. So,
really?
More people say their mom than
Oh, that's
Oprah
awesome.
or Bill Gates or anybody else. So, it makes me smile because there's generally a story that comes with it. Just like so. That was fantastic. Well, Jill, thank you again for being on the show. The last question I have for you: do you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share with the listeners out there today?
Oh, I can't express enough what a great career it's been in the industry. And I've been here for 35 years, and it was something that I never thought would happen. Yeah. I just kind of fell into it, fell in love with it, and have made so many friends that will be lifetime friends and family. And I thank everybody for allowing me to be a part of it.
I understand where you're coming from there. I'm constantly talking about how grateful I am to have
very grateful. That's the perfect word. I'm very grateful.
Well, I am grateful for you taking the time today. If people have more questions of you, what's your poison? Email, Twitter, LinkedIn? How can they get a hold of you?
Probably email. I am on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
Nobody follows me on Twitter. So
we will link to those, though, to your email and your LinkedIn, so because I'm sure people will have more questions. This has been amazing. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for sitting down, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Oh, Randall, thank you so much for having me. It was such a great opportunity, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure. Before we go, I would just like to thank all of you for being you and listening today. And a big thank you to Jill for being on the show and sharing her lessons learned over her career with all of us. And then also to our sponsor, CUIs. Do not forget to check out their popular online certification programs from Cornell University. You can get access to Ivy League executive education without ever leaving your office. Learn more about it at cuis.org/Cornell. 2 more things. First, we'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the CUInsight Experience on your favorite podcast player, Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever you want to listen, we're there. And then check out the CUInsight Experience podcast book list to find your next great read from the suggestions of the guests on our show. Thank you all again for listening. Have a great day and be well, friends.